And what we found is we got more specific on the branding and the design, and it is all customized for people coming to the Bourbon Trail to drink bourbon. Now, we host families. We've hosted a lot of like retreats, mastermind couples retreats, things like that, but it's geared towards them. All right. It's geared towards older groups coming, and the amenities, the layout, everything is geared towards that. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cash Flow Positive. I'm your host, Kenny Bedwell, and we're going to be talking about building your brand and why that's important. Now, this week, I have a special guest episode. We're doing a part 1 and a part 2. This is the part 1. For those of you who are new to the podcast, usually I will do a part 1 and a part 2 on a particular topic. Part 1, I talk about it for about 20 minutes, keep it short and sweet. And then I bring on an expert on that particular topic, in this case, branding. So we're going to bring in a branding expert who's going to talk about why branding is important in the part 2. So definitely show up for the part 2 episode is what I'm saying. Anyway, let's talk about branding and why it's important for you. So from an analytical side, the most important thing we can understand about branding, especially with short-term rentals and short-term rental branding, I guess we should define it first. Like there's a whole other element to branding besides logos and font and, I guess it is a logo, right? Like maybe you build a custom sign in your property or whatever it is. There's a whole nother component to branding that takes you to another level. And that all reflects back on who your guest avatar is. You hear me talk a lot. If you've listened to other episodes, you'll hear me talk a lot about know your guest avatar, who and why they're coming to your market. This becomes really, really imperative when you're branding a property. Okay. Now, a lot of people think, why do I need a brand? I can just throw it up on Airbnb. Or why do I need to brand a smaller property? People think that they only should brand bigger properties or resort style properties or whatever. But the reality is you should try to brand every property you have. Right now, it could be under some, a conglomerate. Like think of like a Marriott. Like all the Marriotts are the same, but they're in different locations. They might look slightly different or have different design. But most of us don't have thousands of properties or even tens of properties. We have a few properties or a property, or we're looking for a property, right? Our first one. And so really it's brand what you have. Okay. But here's why it's important. And here's why in what the data says about branding. So number one, branding impacts direct booking revenue. When people have a link to go to a direct booking site and book your property, it's important that they can have a name or they have something that gives the property a label. We're starting with simple branding here, a label that allows them to go and book direct. There's going to be a certain point in time where a lot of people are going to question whether it actually makes sense to be on Airbnb. And if you haven't noticed, there's probably already a lot of people questioning that. But for the most part, all of us are kind of like, we'll deal with Airbnb's shenanigans. They just changed the rules again. I know they got rid of another cancellation policy and they come up with all these updates twice a year. And it's like frustrating, It's like, well, what next? What next? And then they're trying to email people to different properties after you've already booked in a location so that to see if you want to pay more or get a different property. They're really pushing a whole, book now, pay later approach, which allows you to have flexibility in cancellation, which for hosts who have bigger properties or properties in general, we hate that, right? We don't want people to cancel. We don't want to rely on, well, hopefully my guests stay here. And because will those dates get rebooked? And they're definitely not going to get rebooked at the original price I got, right? So Airbnb is pushing towards more flexibility and cancellation for all their properties. So what are we going to do? It doesn't, in the long run, there's going to be some point for each of us that we can't rely on Airbnb anymore. Okay. Or, I could flip it and say VRBO. So with that in mind, we have to really focus on our ground game. The first thing I want to point out is their vacation rentals have been around for centuries. I think the first one was 1740 or 1746 in like Portland, Maine was the first like short-term rental market. And so, and I mean, think about it, like back in the 90s and 2000s, like when, internet was kind of rolling out, like people had timeshares. They put up a sign in their yard. There were timeshares. There were, even regular vacation rentals. You call the number or go to the website and you direct booking, and people made money that way. Right. And that was before like Airbnb, VRBO, or mass marketing and social media and ad campaigns and all that stuff. So people were doing it before for decades, centuries, in finding success. So if that's possible, then we can do the same thing too, but we have a lot more resources to be able to do it. It's a lot easier today than it was back then. But back then, they did something really important. They branded their properties, right? Now it could have been, like the cabins of the Smokies or, the seashell of Myrtle Beach. I don't know, something like that, but it doesn't matter. They still branded it because that's how they got bookings. So if you're going to be in this for the long haul, branding your property becomes really important. Now, there's different phases to branding. Okay. Meaning like there's phase one, which is like just coming up with a name for your property, which is what a lot of short-term rental hosts do who are trying to build this direct booking site. And I think that's the first thing everyone should do once they stop, or, if you're listening in the car, awesome. Once you pull over, start or think of ideas, just brainstorm for a second. Everyone should do at least phase one, which is coming up with a name or a label for your property that is relatable and something that people will remember and related to your direct booking site. Okay, that's super easy. And if you're not creative like me, you struggle with whole name. I suck at naming things. It's awful. Trust me. Trust me. Don't ask me to come up with a name for anything. Oh my gosh. I'll just use ChatGPT or Claude, right? Like I'll just go back and forth for like hours, like second guessing everything, and then finally picking a name that it's recommended. And so, because I don't know, right? And you might be feeling the same way. So use AI but you got to come up with something. Name your property something. Okay. And then so that's phase one. Now we're assuming that you will create a direct booking site and a domain, a custom domain and everything, which is based off of that property. And that's going to be a part of phase one, is getting your direct booking site. But we're really focused on branding phases. Phase two goes a little deeper. Okay. Phase two is where you start branding based off of your guest avatar and their experience. So now inside the property, there's a logo, right? Inside the property, there's, maybe sub logos or sub marks is what they're called, is like a different version of your logo on maybe branded items or branded gift or, whatever. I used to give a gift basket or gift bag with a custom logo of the property as like a sticker on the bag and like stuff inside it, that was like very related to the area. And to try to encourage people, hey, it's like the friendly reminder, the warm reminder that this property has a name. It's not just on my Airbnb listing. It's not just on my direct booking site, but it's starting to be inside the property, right? So now you have a logo and you have, your label, and, you've got it on some items, or you've got it in, on a sign or something like that. You can get custom neon signs and things like that. That's phase two. That's a little bit deeper. Once again, you're starting to build a little bit more personality of that property besides what it's just an Airbnb. Right? This is a short-term rental now. Maybe you're using that vocabulary instead of this is an Airbnb kind of thing. That becomes more important. This requires a little bit more time. You got to pay someone to design a logo, or you can design it yourself. I don't know. Just you can use AI again, like I said, but I'd probably pay somebody. Just go on Fiverr, Fiverr.com, hire someone pretty cheap, $100, something like that, and then create a logo for you and go crazy with it. And honestly, like if you just have like a single family home somewhere, I definitely think you should do the logo. Phase two, I think is important, and everyone listening here should do phase two at some point. Phase one is like, you have to do it. I'm telling you, you have to do phase one. Phase two is like, you should do it at some point. Okay. Which is creating a logo and putting things in your property that remind them of your brand and who you are in your direct booking site. Phase three dives deeper than all of that. So phase three of branding and these are Kenny's phases of branding. This is not, any expert, but this is kind of how I see it. Phase three goes deeper. So now you have a logo, you have a label, you have a title, and a direct booking site, but now you take it to social media. There's a social media page. There's in-depth, like the property is designed around the branding and who you're trying to attract. So when we get into phase three, it becomes a lot more elaborate. it becomes so before you launch your property, who exactly you are trying to target to stay at your property. And it's not just like, I'm targeting families, Kenny. I'm talking more specific than that. I'm saying you're targeting families of how many? Three, let's say 3 kids. They have 3 kids. We'll use my family, two girls, 1 boy, toddlers, max age is 6 years old or 7 years old, all the way down. And they're here for a vacation to enjoy with their family. They're going to care about these important things. Their income levels between X and Y. They're potentially coming from these major cities, and they are coming to this area to get away and to have a moment together with their family and their kids. So it's going to be important. Now, when you start to dissect it that way, do you see how some of the, think about amenities. If I was going to amenitize a property, and I just told you that very, very specific, and you can think about your family too. Now, I'm not saying your family is staying at all these properties, but this exercise here, you can start with your family or whoever else, but this is the person, this is the group that's coming to my property. These are the specific characteristics of them. Now, your amenities. So if I'm targeting my family, now I'm putting amenities in my property that are geared towards the characteristics I just named out. In this case, my family, right? So what would I enjoy if I showed up at a property with toddlers? There's going to be a ton of kid-friendly things at this property, right? I might be less focused on arcade machines because my toddlers aren't big enough to use them and they get bored really quickly, and more focused on kids' toys and, maybe little forts and stuff with them to play with, right? But if I'm hosting more teenagers, then it changes. Or if I'm hosting couples, or if I'm hosting groups of families, multi-generational families, corporate retreats, bachelorette parties, big older groups traveling together, mastermind events, girls' weekend trips. You can have, and you should plan at least 3 guest avatars that are coming to your property, right? If you plan out 5 or you got too many. If you do more than that, more than 3, in my opinion, then you're trying to market to everyone. But the point of this in the branding side is you are preparing your property to be marketed specifically to these people. It is branded around these people and attracting them to your place. Meaning, if this particular group comes to my property, they are going to have the best experience possible because the property was literally designed for them, not for everyone, for them. We're experiencing this with the Kentucky Bourbon Trail property we have. That property we crossed over a while ago, but in the first year, I did $425,000 of gross revenue. I underwrote that property. If you've been listening for a while, I underwrote that property at $250,000. So it more than exceeded. And what we found is we got more specific on the branding and the design, and it is all customized for people coming to the Bourbon Trail to drink bourbon. Now, we host families. We've hosted a lot of retreats, mastermind couples retreats, things like that, but it's geared towards them. All right. It's geared towards older groups coming, and the amenities, the layout, everything is geared towards that. Okay. Now, have we deep dove and did phase 3 of our branding? No, we're at phase 2. We should consider phase 3 because of how much money that property is producing. Put it on social media, start, promoting it and doing all these things to get more attention on it. But we got specific enough to understand who our guest avatar and what was bringing them to the market that we could brand around that, including our amenities and our design. So it's more moody inside. It's darker colors. There's golf simulators, not arcade machines. Sure, there's pool, and these are things that, yes, families can enjoy, and younger kids can watch the movies in the movie theater. They can swim in the pool. But we decided to put in 2 hot tubs instead of 1, right? Because it's going to be a lot more adults there. Therefore, they are going to want to hang out together. Those are the little things. I say little, hot tubs not little, but those little things like that, the concepts of them are what make the difference and what multiply revenue, puts the multiplier on it. And so branding your property, especially if you have a bigger property, any property I think that goes over 100,000, you should at least do phase 2, if not be working on phase 3. Because and phase 3 includes, potentially bringing in influencers, looking at influencer marketing, running social media ads. Now, do you have to do all of those things to be successful? No, you don't. But phase three is where you start to get into these things. You start to have a presence outside of just relying on the OTAs to bring you traffic and then rebookings to further your direct booking site. Now you're actively seeking bookings outside of the OTAs. You're actively seeking cold traffic and trying to convert it to warm. You're building your funnel, right? So for those of you who are in business who understand what a funnel is, a sales funnel essentially is people come in, maybe just like my services. People come in, they listen to the podcast first, they get to know me, they hear it, we build this weird trust, even though I don't know them, and they listen, they're like, this guy's in my head. I'll take it. Like I like what he's saying, and they listen over and over and over. And now they're in my funnel. Then all of a sudden they start getting emails from me, and then they schedule a call, and then we dive deeper because it's all about trust, right? So, and it's the same thing with your guests. So building trust. So you are building a funnel to attract people to your property outside of what Airbnb and Vrbo can provide you. And I think that's phase three. And honestly, we should be all headed in that direction. It's going to get to that point where we have to do that if we want to have a successful short-term rental. So my goal is to keep you 2 to 3 steps ahead of everybody else. And remember, the space is professionalizing. And professionalization looks like branding, marketing, doing all these additional things that, frankly, take time and effort. And sure, you can hire it out, especially if you've got a bigger property that's making lots of money. But for those of us with smaller properties, start with phase one. Don't get overwhelmed. Oh, I got to run social media ads. Oh, no. Like, you probably shouldn't even do that. Don't worry about that. Start with phase one. Come up with your label, come up with your title, come up with something that to get people to remember the name and get your direct booking site going. Okay. Then move to phase two. Phase two is where you dive deeper in. You can add, you can put your property on social media, but honestly, I think it's about the inside, reminding people that this is a branded property. So having your logo in different places, and you could do it on a welcome gift. You could do it on custom towels, custom linens, signs. We even have we did like one of those like laser cut signs that have the brand for our Asheville property, Black Bear Ridge. And it's big and it's right in the foyer area. It's right on the wall, like kind of hanging. It's pretty cool. And we even have some stuff outside the signage. It says Black Bear Ridge, just so people know, hey, welcome. You're at Black Bear Ridge. You know what I mean? And that helps push people to your direct booking site even further. And then finally, phase three is where you actually do the social media stuff and potentially influencer marketing. You can run ads. You're building a funnel, a true funnel. And there's ways to do that too. So understand 3 phases of branding, but if you're going to be in this business for the long haul, you're going to have to brand your property. And so start with phase one. So on the next episode, we're going to bring in an expert, and she's going to tell us all about how she does branding. And guys, it's going to blow your freaking mind. I really, really, really sure. If you're listening to this episode and you made it this far, awesome. Hopefully it was helpful and you found some value in this, because I think it was good. But what she tells you is going to be excellent, and I don't want you to miss it. So stay tuned. Listen to that episode. It's going to be hopefully drop on Thursday of this week. And I will see you on the next episode of Cash Flow Positive.